Thank you, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started. We appreciate you joining us today. A few months back, or just a little bit over a month ago, I guess, we did a research study with Aberdeen, and what we are going to review today is the results of that study and some findings that will help you bond with your customers. Let's see. Today's presenters are Omar Minkara from Aberdeen, Senior Research Analyst, Contact Center and Customer Experience Management, and David Jackson, the CEO of ClickTools. I'm going to go ahead and hand the screens over to Omar. There you go, Omar, it's all yours.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Casey, and hi, folks. Once again, welcome to our webinar. And as we're getting started, we'd like to discuss the talking points that we have as part of today's session. We have a lot of great conversations prepared for you, and here's what we'll do. We'll start our conversation by taking a look at the differences between the two terms, VOC, Voice of the Customer, versus Customer Feedback. There is some confusion in the marketplace, and a lot of companies are using the two terms interchangeably. So we'll help you understand the differentiations between the two terms. Then we'll delve into the challenges that block companies' ability to maximize their investments from VOC programs. We'll take a look at what your peers have reported back to us, and we'll also take a look at what are the best practices that help your peers, again, to overcome those challenges. Speaking of the best practices, they do indeed have some quantifiable impacts. And that includes financial benefits such as ROI, return on investments. And we'll take a look at how VOC programs help companies drive quantifiable returns to their top line and bottom line results. And as mentioned earlier on, we will take a look on the business value of integrating CRM with VOC initiatives. That is, what is the value of CRM as a customer feedback data repository? And we'd like to mention that we will go over some questions and answers as they come within the session. If you'd like to provide any questions that you have throughout today's session, please feel free to use the Q&A box on the webinar platform. With that, let's get right into it. And as we mentioned early on, there are some quantifiable benefits associated with VOC programs. So just what are those? That's an exactly same question that we asked to your peers, to more than 250 of your peers over the past several months. And here's what we found out. The findings in the slide are rather busy, so if you could just focus on the 2 points where we have in red circles, you will see that the difference between the two numbers is 300. So what does that mean? That tells us that the best-in-class companies are driving $300 million more to their top line and bottom line results in attribution to the best practices that we will discuss today. Now, we should also add that the average survey sample pool in this particular study was $1 billion in revenue. So when we do a quick math, if a $1 billion firm is able to drive $300 million to the best practices that we will discuss today, that means that 30% of their revenue has been attributed to the topics of our webinar. And if you're a $1 million business or a $10 billion business, the same logic will apply to you. So the goal from today's webinar is to help you become on the left portion of the graph where you are differentiating yourself or establishing a significant presence in order to be able to nurture your best-in-class position. Speaking of the returns, however, why are companies not investing in VOC programs? We've seen that they do indeed pay off for businesses. So when we ask the question to companies without VOC initiatives, what we found out is that lack of technical expertise is the #1 reason why companies are not investing in this area. Now let's elaborate on that a little bit. What do we mean by lack of technical expertise? What that stands for is that companies are struggling with A, defining a formal VOC initiative putting the building blocks in place, which is, again, one of the objectives from today's webinar. But also they struggle with operational activities such as capturing customer feedback, but also putting that into action. Most companies are focused on capturing the feedback data, but they're not as good in putting that into action when it comes to sales, marketing, and service activities. So again, today's objective is to help you eliminate that particular challenge. So with that, here are some key takeaways that we will be hoping to leave you with by the end of today's session. I'll let you take a couple seconds to digest the bullet points here, and we'll carry on with the rest of our findings. I assume a lot of you have read it at this point, folks, so let's talk a little bit about the last housekeeping item of the day, that is our research methodology. We here in Aberdeen follow a formal methodology that dictates the way we capture data and the way we analyze data. So all the research findings that you will see as part of this webinar are all grounded based on this methodology. And we won't be getting into the specifics of it. However, if there will be any questions regarding that, again, we will have a Q&A session at the end of this webinar, and we'll be happy to answer those by then. And a quick reminder, you will see a hashtag at the bottom of the screen here, VOC meets CRM. And the purpose of that is to keep the conversation going across social media networks. So if you'd like to share any one of the research findings that we have presented so far or will present, please feel free to use the hashtag to keep the conversation alive during and after the webinar. So with that, let's talk about the distinction between the two terms we mentioned early on, voice of the customer versus customer feedback. What is VOC, first of all? The way we define VOC is the organizational processes and technologies companies use to capture customer feedback and sentiment across multiple different channels. In other words, it has to do with the whole life cycle of activities and the technologies that are used to capture customers' feedback. In that case, customer feedback is the end result. It's the end point of the journey where VOC leads you to. It gives you visibility of what exactly your customers want, how they want, and when they want. Now that we've provided that distinction, we'd like to ask you, do you listen to what your customers have to say? The reason is because if you're doing a good job in listening, not only listening, but doing a good job in listening to your customers and acting on their feedback, here's some benefits that your peers have seen so far. In the case of Virgin America, for example, they had raving reviews from their passengers that shows how loyal their customers are. In the case of Tough Mudder, which is a running competition, they have their customers tattoo their logo on their body. Or in the case of Apple, as you can see, their customers have a special haircut with their logo. So the key takeaway from this particular slide is that if you're doing a good job in listening to your customers and engaging them, then chances are you will be able to drive loyal customers to your portfolio and as a result enjoy better business results. However, on the other hand, if you do a poor job in listening to your customers and attending to their needs, you will hear from your customers. Yes, the voice of the customer is there, and the customers are not shy about sharing their experiences. And if you do a poor job in delivering customer experience, and if you don't listen to the customer's needs after this poor experience, it's likely that the experience will be shared with your other current and potential customers. So in today's webinar, our goal is to help you overcome this very same scenario that you see on the screen, but rather be in this category where you have loyal customers that are raving about your products and your services. Now, another data point, however, as we mentioned early on, the lack of technical expertise was the #1 reason why companies are not investing in a VOC initiative. Here's some findings that will help companies counter this challenge should they try to establish a business case for VOC initiatives. As you can see, the companies in blue here, the VOC users, are outperforming the ones in yellow, the non-users, in a number of key revenue metrics year over year. If you take a look at revenue from net new customers, the delta is significant, but it also carries on to other metrics such as improving the lifetime value of customers. That is, how much are my customers spending with my business throughout the course of their interactions with us. So with that, we do have a question to you now. We'd like to hear from you on what are the challenges that you see in implementing a VOC initiative. Operator, let's please execute the poll so that we can carry on with an understanding of where our audience ranks compared to our survey base. Great. I think we might have a minor glitch with the poll functionality, folks. So what we will do then in this case is we'll proceed with our research findings in the next slide. If I can please take back the control. Excellent. So as you'll see, what we heard on that very same question from your peers, more than 130 of your peers to be exact, folks, is that empowered customers have changed the dynamics of customer relationships. In other words, customers today know more about your business, your products, and your services than they ever did before. And from the perspective of VOC programs, that means that companies are not ready to manage those interactions because customers are empowered. And we'll see a case study shortly as part of our webinar of mishandling a customer interaction. Companies are challenged. They don't know how to effectively handle the needs of the empowered customers. And a part of the reason why customers today are more empowered is because they are using multiple different channels to educate themselves, to do their homeworks, to make them have guided buying decisions as well as loyalty decisions. So from that perspective, as you'll see, half of your peers have indicated that they are not able to deliver a seamless VOC program. And as again, we mentioned early on, our objective from today's session is to help you overcome those challenges so that you can, in your business, achieve the best-in-class status. Now, speaking of the best-in-class status, those same companies, the top-performing organizations, are also the ones that are able to handle those challenges and maximize the returns associated with their VOC investments. So before we go into the characteristics of what makes a best-in-class firm, let's see what are the attributes. Those are who are the best-in-class companies from a performance perspective. Early on, we mentioned that in Aberdeen, we follow a formal research methodology. That methodology dictates that we capture company performance in order to be able to identify how companies compare to one another. And in this instance, we looked at the top 20% of companies in the 4 metrics in bold and compared them to all other businesses, the bottom 70%. And as you'll see, there are some stark differences in performance. You'll see that there is almost 40% delta between customer retention rates. It tells us that the best-in-class companies are able to keep their customer base as loyal clients year over year in comparison to all other businesses. On the other hand, they're also driving 17% more year-over-year increase to their top-line revenue. Now, I would like to note that you will see some operational excellence metrics such as first contact resolution and response time to customer requests. In other words, average handle time. However, the best-in-class characteristics are not only confined to operational excellence. This particular slide, you might remember as you've seen early on, is indicative that these top performers are able to attribute 30% of their revenue that they were able to increase year over year through the best practices that we will now discuss. In fact, now is the perfect time to ask the question, what makes the best-in-class unique? And folks, a quick reminder, you will see the hashtag once again at the bottom of the slide, VOC meets CRM. So if you'd like to share any one of those research findings with your followers and colleagues, please feel free to do so using the hashtag. So with that, let's get right into it, into what makes a best-in-class VOC initiative. There are 4 building blocks that we will discuss today. Number 1 is, how are the top performers capturing and utilizing customer feedback data in a seamless way? And we'll do so, we'll discuss this particular aspect by looking at the role of CRM systems in integration with VOC programs. We'll take a look at how the top performers are using customer feedback data to develop new products and services addressing the specific needs of each and every customer. And in order to be able to do that, we'll discuss the role of customer segmentation for personalized conversations. And the last building block that helps the best-in-class that we will discuss today is, how do you empower your knowledge workers? Those are your sales reps, marketing staff, and contact center agents with customer feedback data to ultimately help them do their jobs better. So with that being said, let's get right into the differentiating factors that help the best-in-class outperform their peers. First of all, on the left, you'll see the red arrow pointing to collecting customer feedback through one or more channels, that is multiple channels. It's deployed almost 20 to 30% more widely by the companies in blue. So what that tells us here in Aberdeen is, any time we see a capability adopted by more than 80% of the companies, we call that particular capability table stakes. So from your perspective, folks, if you are not using multiple channels to listen to your customers and collect their feedback data, then you're missing out on the opportunity of becoming best in class. And in our next slide, we'll share several different activities that can help you optimize that channel mix. However, before doing so, as we mentioned in our prior slide, customer-centric product and service development is also critical. And as you can see, the companies in blue, the best-in-class, are twice more likely to use customer feedback data to create new products and services that resonate better with their target audiences. In other words, they ask for customers' feedback, or they listen to them proactively to understand what features, what capabilities do their customers want in the next iteration of their products and services. But on the right, however, you'll see that they do not have to wait until the next iteration of a product or service. They can use the VOC data, customers' current interaction history data, to understand what products and services resonate better with which audiences, so they can personalize the customer engagement strategy. For example, a multi-touch, multi-channel marketing campaign can be executed to different customer segments by understanding their feedback data. Now, early on, we mentioned that adopting a multi-channel VOC initiative is not an option. It is table stakes to become best in class. And a question on that front that we get all the time is, what are the channels that we should adopt as part of our business? We'll answer that question shortly, but before we do that, you'll see that what we found out from your peers regarding channel adoption shows us traditional channels such as email, phone, and IVR are still high in adoption to collect customer feedback data. Approximately half, more than half actually, of businesses are utilizing those channels. On the lower end, you have channels such as online media and online customer communities that are rather more emerging, especially in the B2C space, but also many companies are telling us that they are planning to adopt them as the consumers particularly are utilizing them more frequently. And early on, we mentioned that we will provide you with different strategies that will help you optimize the channel mix. So as one of the key takeaways from this webinar, we like to recommend that not every channel that you see on the slide is right for every business. You need to understand where your customers are discussing their experiences with one another as well as your business. If your customers, for example, are not using online media chances are you don't need to use that channel because you will only incur more cost while still not capturing enough customer feedback. So it's critical to conduct surveys, focus groups, and listen to your customers to understand what are the channels that should be a part of your channel mix. And here's a perfect example of a case study where a company, a rather large company, has failed in implementing a multi-channel VOC program. In this instance that you might be familiar with, an unhappy passenger who was using British Airways has sent out a tweet to get support regarding his lost luggage. And his tweet was sent out over the weekend. That was when he had the issue. And his response, the response he received back, was on a Monday. And the reason was because the company's Twitter account is only active Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The challenge, however, is that customer issues, passenger issues, are not on the same schedule. And empowered customers want service right then and there. Because if they're not serviced in a personalized and timely way, then they can simply resort back to the other providers. And sure enough, this particular customer wasn't happy, and he went on to provide a commentary of his perspective on the delayed response. However, he actually did something else. He built a promoted Twitter campaign. He spent $1,000 to share his tweet with the broader mass media across Twitter. And what he was able to generate was 77,000 unique views of his tweet, but also 15,000 conversations citing his experience. Talk about the power of empowered customers. Folks, this one customer spent $1,000, but you see how much brand awareness and loyalty impact he has heard on behalf of British Airways. You can spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to launch a brand awareness and loyalty campaign, but if you don't handle a customer's need in a timely and effective way, then chances are all those gains will be erased by that one poor customer experience. So now that we've looked at several different best-in-class capabilities, as a reminder, those were adopting a multi-channel VOC program, creating customer-centric products and services, and personalizing your customer conversations. We should also take a look at what else is helping the best-in-class outperform their peers. On that front, now we'd like to discuss the impact of utilizing CRM in VOC programs. I'll let you take a couple seconds on a code, to read a code by one of your peers, and we'll take a look at data on that point. Great. I assume a lot of you have read it at this point, folks, so let's move along and let's take a look at what we found as part of our data that is collected by more than 130 of your peers on company performance and how it's tied to integrating the VOC data within a CRM system. In the second column here, you will see companies that do have this capability versus the third column is indicative of those that don't. And as you can see, the year-over-year improvement in overall sales team attainment of quota is much better for those companies that have such integration. Also, however, customer satisfaction rate improvements is much better. Now, you might be asking, Omar, can you tell us a little bit more about the relationship between how having integration between a VOC system and a CRM system helps the sales reps hit their numbers at a wider scale? So let's talk a little bit about that before we move on. In today's environment, as we mentioned, empowered customers demand and want personalized messages. They want to be sold in a consultative way. And the best way that companies can achieve this is by providing the sales reps, whether it be inside sales or field sales reps, with sales intelligence. In this instance, is customer feedback available in a CRM system. By looking at the account data in the CRM system, the sales reps can see when was the last time the customer interacted with my business. Were they satisfied? which products did they buy? Did they buy similar products? And they can tailor their messages appropriately, which helps them ultimately close more deals and hit their numbers at a wider scale. A couple other differentiators, however, from the perspective of best-in-class companies. A quick reminder on who those companies were. Those are companies that have better performance in customer retention, annual company revenue, average handle time, as well as the first contact resolution rates. And as you can see, folks, the companies in blue here, those same best-in-class firms, are almost twice more likely to use the service interactions as sales opportunities. So what does that mean? Going back to our prior conversation, if you integrate your CRM system with VOC initiatives, it means that not only your sales reps, but also your service reps will have visibility into customer feedback. They will know what are the issues that the customers have. Are they happy about it? Are they unhappy? Which products did they buy? To cross-sell and upsell based on customer data. On the right, however, you will also see another capability, that is proactive outbound customer communications. What does that mean? Let's provide you with a use case. If you're producing consumer products, and let's assume that you have several consumers start to converse across social networks about an issue they're having with your products. If you can catch that early on through listening to social media channels, and if you can proactively re-engage the buyers of that particular product and let them know that you are having issues with a product, let them know what the issue is, and provide them with resolution, you are more likely to be seen as a trusted advisor. And as you can see, the best-in-class are almost 3 times more likely to have that particular capability, which is the reason why they are able to retain more of their customers year over year. And here's another quote from one of your peers on the business value of going above and beyond. As you're reading through it, what we found out as part of our conversation with that particular product manager was that in addition to serving customers' requests, they were able to actually improve their revenue because now they're providing outbound, proactive outbound communications where the customers see them as a trusted advisor and tend to spend more and more each year. Now, folks, how do you optimize your VOC performance? We've discussed several different capabilities that help you establish the organizational capabilities and a strategy to become best in class. But how do you assess your performance the right way? Well, it has to do with first understanding the right KPIs, the key performance indicators. As you'll see on the left, the best in class, the companies in blue, are almost 60% more likely to understand what are the right metrics to assess their performance. For example, average handle time might be a metric for some businesses that indicates the performance of the VOC programs. For some others, however, it might not be the right metric. So by implementing a change management program and understanding what are the right measures for your business, you'll be able to understand where exactly you stack rank against your competition, which gets us into the second differentiator on the right, benchmarking your performance against direct peers and competition. Let's assume that you found out that NPS, for example, customer satisfaction, was one of the key metrics. Are you benchmarking your performance to your peers? If you're not, then again, you're missing out on the opportunity to understand where you rank against the competition so that you can improve on a continuous basis. And we've uncovered a lot of different activities so far, folks. Now we'd like to ask, are companies implementing those activities manually, or do they need automation? The answer, as you might have assumed, is the latter. And here you will see a couple different technologies that the best-in-class firms are adopting at a wider scale to automate their VOC initiatives. First and foremost, as we've discussed, they are almost twice more likely to have a CRM system, which goes back to our conversation on the business value of integrating VOC with CRM. And from the perspective of collecting customer feedback, they use customer feedback management tools that help them launch online surveys, IVR surveys, and etc. to collect that customer feedback data. And as you'll see, call recording is another one of these technology enablers. If you're using phone and IVR surveys, are you recording those customer feedback conversations? If you're not, then chances are you're missing out on the opportunity to go back to this particular conversation and capture the context and understand what are the reasons why the customer has provided the feedback they did. And you can use tools such as speech analytics to get to the bottom of call recordings. And if you're also using web analytics, we strongly recommend you to deploy web analytics to understand the customer sentiment and feedback regarding the interactions across the web. In this particular slide, you'll see the same colors, folks, the blues and yellows. However, that refers to two different categories this time. Now we're comparing VOC users in blue versus non-users in yellow. And as you'll see, the non-users are not adopting any one of the three technologies that we demonstrate on the screen. Versus the companies in blue, the VOC users, do in fact have those technologies in place, which goes out to show that using digital dashboards to personalize the view of customer feedback data, using business intelligence tools to drill down into the feedback information to reveal hidden insights on customer needs, or providing the right stakeholders with real-time data regarding customer issues is critical when it comes to implementing a VOC program. Now I'd like to also ask the question, does company size matter to undertake a VOC initiative? Do you have to be a multi-billion-dollar business to have a VOC program and outperform your peers the way the best-in-class did? The answer, as you might have assumed, is no, you don't need to. Here you see a breakdown of the best-in-class organizations. As you'll see, they break down pretty fairly across different company sizes. There's almost a fair spread between large, mid-sized, and small companies and their ability to become best-in-class, which shows that if you deploy the key technologies and the processes we've discussed so far, then you're more likely to accomplish the results you've seen as part of the best-in-class differentiators. With that, we'd like to provide you with an overview of the key takeaways we've discussed so far. We recommended that streamlining the capture and use of customer feedback data is critical, but you need to do it the right way. That is the best-in-class way. And one of those characteristics is integrating the VOC initiatives within the CRM system. We've also discussed several use cases of the resulting feedback data to develop customer-centric products and services. We recommended that you engage your customers in a personalized way by using customer feedback data and tailoring your conversations across multiple different touch points. And we also recommended to measure your staff performance. Those are sales, marketing, and service employees, in other words, the knowledge workers' performance with customer feedback to understand how they perform in delighting the empowered customers. With that, a quick reminder, folks, we have the hashtag at the bottom of the slide, and if you will have any questions, please feel free to provide them on the webinar platform, but also share the research findings with your colleagues and followers across social media networks. Now with that, we'll turn it over to Dave, who will talk a little bit more about how those activities can and have been put into action in real-life scenarios. David, please take it away.
Thank you, Omar. If I can just show my screen. And can I just confirm with someone that the screen is visible now? Okay. Omar, thanks for that great introduction. I think the research has got some fascinating insights and stresses the importance of feedback. And I think there's some great data in there for people that need to justify their investments in voice of the customer and feedback. I'd like to take some of those lessons and apply them to, apply our experience to what we've learned over doing this now for 12 years or so. For those of you that don't know ClickTools, for those of you that are new to us, we began life in 2001. We set off in business providing software to do surveys, and that's still the vast majority of what our customers use our application for. And I guess in those years we've probably learned two key lessons. The first is that feedback is about much more than surveys. It's actually a lesson that our customers taught us in the way that they use the ClickTools application. So all sorts of information, whether it be from web forms, from call scripts, from social media, they all represent different ways of capturing and listening to the voice of the customer. The second lesson that we learned quite early on was that feedback in its own is of value, but feedback when it's put alongside other customer data is even more valuable, which is why we were the first feedback company to offer a point-and-click interface with CRM, and it's where the vast majority of our customers come from. So we integrate with people like Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics CRM, Oracle, and Sugar, because the customers that we deal with know the real value. Interesting now, almost research has started to put some figures on it. So what we do for our customers is not help them just collect on that data, but actually centralize that data in our CRM system in a very easy way, and then act upon that. And as I mentioned, for us, CRM and voice of the customer is much more than surveys. It's about gathering data at all stages of the customer journey. And by the way, as Omar said in his presentation, that includes increasingly across multiple channels. Customers today hop between phone, email, web, social, mobile, and they expect you, companies, to be able to keep up with them. So thinking through that customer journey is actually the best way to design your CRM system. Don't forget processes, your internal processes. Start with the customer journey. And that segues nicely into the first of 6 lessons that I want to share with you. The first is consistently great customer experiences are not accidental. They're a result of purposeful design. They are the result of determined leadership that drives that design forward. And I don't underestimate the challenge here, but that's why I said it needs determined leadership. Now, doing it is difficult, but what needs to be done is not rocket science. What you do is you work out your customer journey and you identify what those key touch points are. And for each of those touch points, you ask a simple question. At this stage, what matters most to our customers? And that leads you then to say, well, if that's what matters most, how do we deliver a designed, differentiated experience to them? And part of that is how do we want them to feel? Remember that buying decisions are not always, in fact often are not, rational things. There's a huge amount of emotion, even by the way, in business-to-business environments. So catering for that emotional piece, how do we want the customer to feel at this point, is a key part of a designed customer experience. And underpinning this, which is where the link to CRM comes in, is, well, who needs what information to do what? What information do we need to collect from customers and prospects along that customer journey, but also what information do we need to provide and how can we do that? And of course the final stage is to make sure that someone has ownership of that. So starting point is a designed customer experience. The second thing that we've learned over time is that there's a lot of work required, but clever people, the people who are the leaders and not the laggards in the use of voice of the customer, recognize that that effort, that the mundane, the administrative, the very necessary, can be automated. So the best companies, and many of the reasons that people come to ClickTools, is so that they can automate the distribution of surveys. Forget about building distribution lists and sending surveys out manually. Look at CRM and integration with CRM to use event-based triggers, to use report-based CRM generation. And you can get smart and embed contact rules into CRM to avoid over-surveying customers. And that CRM integration also has another advantage. It enables you to issue and capture voice of the customer in a real-time way, not next day, next week, next year. centralizing it, collecting that data and sharing that in your CRM system is important around acting upon that. And again, ClickTools provides that with its point-and-click capability. And now the outcome of automating that very important and necessary for administrative activity does two things. One is it enables you to increase your productivity, but more importantly, it allows you to spend that valuable time in the added value activities of feedback, which is all about generating the insights that enable you to drive the improvements and actually taking, monitoring and tracking those improvements forward. Because those are the activities that should dominate the allocation of your time. Now, of course, you would expect me to say that key to this is a single view of the customer. And Omar talked about the importance and benefits of a consistent customer experience, which, by the way, the research identified as the second biggest challenge impacting people implementing feedback programs. But a consistent customer experience is only possible if you have a consistent view of the customer, a single view of the customer. And by the way, let me tell you that this single view of the customer starts with the C. It's the customer's perspective, it's the relationship, and in that respect, it's the totality. So CRM has to be seen as something which is managing and involved with all stages of that customer journey. It's not just about tracking prospects through pipeline as a Salesforce automation tool. It's not just about providing great support and service. It's not just about marketing and marketing automation. As far as the customer is concerned, they see you as one organization, and you have to have the ability to see them as one customer. So there is no boundaries on CRM. It is everything that the customer does with you. One of the real benefits of a single view of the customer is the ability to integrate feedback data with other data to generate greater insights. I have a saying that the more data I have, the more insightful I become. And I'd like to try and illustrate this with a simple children's puzzle. You all remember perhaps the join the dots, the connect the dots. So as I flick through these slides, just imagine what this picture is. As you can see, the more dots and the more lines I put on this picture, the clearer it becomes. So the power of bringing feedback data together with the rest of your data is not just about having it all in one place so that people can see it. It's actually about generating much richer insights. So that's why feedback has to be linked to other customer data, such as buying patterns, customer profitability, employee performance, process metrics. Because when you connect them all together, your ability to generate even deeper insights increases. And by the way, if you'd like to know more about that, we did a white paper on integrating data, integrating feedback with other data to generate those insights. Now, one of the more interesting things from the Aberdeen research is the slide that Omar showed earlier about the impact on sales quotas. So one of the findings was that 6% of companies, that companies that integrate feedback with CRM generate a 6% year-on-year improvement in sales quota, whereas companies that don't do that integration could only sustain a 2.8% year-on-year increase. Now, we can all understand the relationship between feedback and improvements in customer satisfaction, but the one about sales got me thinking a little bit more. And it is very much around personalization. Actually, it goes beyond personalization because personalization sounds like I use your name. But what we're actually looking for, and what buyers increasingly looking for, is to be dealt with appropriate to the context that they find themselves in at any point in time. So let me explain. A simple example. You meet a salesman in the street, and this salesman says, for $1, I will sell you either a Mars bar or a guaranteed lottery winning ticket. And by the way, in Arizona, the lottery will win you $1,000 a week for a year. Now you might think the choice there is obvious, and it is. I'd choose the lottery ticket. But now let me change the context. Let me change the situation that you as an individual buyer find yourself in. You've met this salesman in the Arctic Circle. You're a 2-day trek from anywhere that's got any form of civilization or human contact. You've not eaten for 2 days, and the salesman is the only person that you're going to meet in that period. Where are you going to spend your dollar now? So context fundamentally can fundamentally change your decisions. And I think the reason that companies that integrate feedback and other data together in CRM enables them to understand that buyer much deeper, to understand the context in which they're operating in. In a former life, I used to do some work as an academic, and one of my colleagues many, many years ago developed a technique called context-based segmentation, which is not just about which geography you are, it's actually about building a very rich picture of each individual buyer and then using that to shape your interactions with them. And I think that salespeople who succeed in generating that increased quota attainment, part of what they do, and let's not underestimate the skill of good salespeople, but part of what they do is they have access to a very rich picture. They have access to that context. My 6th out of 7 lessons is around action. Now, the sharp-eyed of you, I can tell you, by the way, that the second word in the title is not misspelled. It intentionally says community action. An American philosopher, Henry David Thoreau, once said, "I cannot hear your words for the action that thunders above your head." And customers provide you with feedback, go onto social media, not just because they want to be heard, but because they want you to do something about it. So what's important in building voice of the customer feedback programs is connecting that measurement, that collection of information, with action. There's been some research published in the last couple of weeks by Bruce Temkin, looking again at voice of the customer programs, who say that companies are very good at collecting the data, but much less good, actually quite bad, in acting on that data. And you can see this picture is shaped like a butterfly, and I can assure you that a one-winged butterfly does not fly. There's no point in gathering the information unless you're going to do something with it. And again, what the best companies do is they use their programs, their VOC programs, their integration with CRM to connect the measurement and the action piece at different levels. So on completion of a transaction, event-driven survey issued automatically should link directly to either, well, to 2 things really. One is service recovery if that feedback suggests a dissatisfied customer, but also by aggregating that to process improvement. And you then start to look at that data for customers or segments as a whole and use that to improve account management. And of course, don't forget the unspoken customers. Some of the people actually who aren't customers, and what is the market saying, so looking beyond just your customer base. So all times when you're building your voice of the customer programs, always be looking to say, how are we connecting measurement and action? My final lesson is about making feedback visible. One of the things that we do for a lot of customers is, as I say, integrate the data, not just the outcasting of surveys, the issuing of surveys, the capturing of the voice of the customer, but also make those results very, very visible within the organization. So you can see on this slide that middle block jumps out in terms of this customer is a satisfied customer. All their report cards or surveys are very positive. And having that information visible both at the level of the contact and the account in this case, but also being able to delve into the information and look at it for individual pieces, changes the way that your people interact with customers. Now there are a couple of things here. One is, one of our customers actually uses the aggregated data for how a contact, an individual customer, is feeling about them, to send them differentiated marketing campaigns. Why, for example, would you want to give the same message to someone who's very supportive of you, a promoter, than you would to someone who's giving you some very negative feedback? So targeting and content of marketing campaigns can change based on this sort of information. But in some respects, the most important contribution is just the visibility of this information. Having it in everyone's face every day changes the way that they interact with customers. And that's, by the way, just not our thoughts. This is a quotation from one of our customers, Marilyn Otto of Pitney Bowes, who says the entire Pitney Bowes, in that case business intelligence organization, is now in a proactive versus reactive mode. Everyone is thinking about customer first. It has helped us create an overall cultural shift when it comes to customer experience. We didn't improve their customer experience, but with the tools and expertise and knowledge that we've got, we did help them put that voice of the customer into a form that can be acted upon and visible, and therefore made a contribution to changing the culture of Pitney Bowes. And just to give you some idea, over a 12-month period after implementing Click Tools, Pitney Bowes increased its Net Promoter Score by 30 points. And just as an aside, we saved them $300,000 in the process compared to their previous supplier. So what we're talking about, these lessons are all about connecting these three dots, making sure that you've got a very tight connection between the customer experience, the quality of the customer experience that you're delivering, and measuring its performance, and then making sure that information is visible right across the organization in a way which is relevant to the different roles that people play, and therefore enabling an even better delivery of an even better customer experience. So when you start to connect these dots, you actually get a virtuous circle where one's contributing to improving the other constantly. So we believe that customer experience is a goal that people should want to achieve, and I think Omar's given some great data on why that's important. We also believe that CRM is a very, very powerful engine for driving a positive customer experience, and we like to think of ourselves as the fuel that drives some of that engine. If you'd like any more information, we'd be pleased to take any questions. Please use the hashtag VOCMeetsCRM. If you want to contact us directly, there's my contact details. Omar, I think you've also left your contact details. And as I say, we're happy to take any questions that you have. And with that, I'll hand back to Casey.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Omar. Again, we will be taking questions via chat if you have any questions. I know we're running a little bit long, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but if you do have any questions following this webinar, remember that we will be continuing this conversation at hashtag VOCMeetsCRM. We will also be sending you a recorded version of this webinar to share with coworkers and friends via email as well. And I know that we're running a little bit long, but I do have a couple questions, so we can share those. Really quickly, what department do most VOC programs begin with? Omar, David, do one of you want to take that on?
Absolutely, I can take a stab at it. Folks, that's actually very same question that we have included in one of our recent surveys. And over the past years, we asked the same question, and what we found out, as of this year, 2013, that is, there's an interesting change where marketing used to be the lead in capturing customer feedback and leading up the customer experience programs in most businesses. Today, however, because of the fact that customers are more empowered and the fact that a poor experience directly impacts the brand awareness and loyalty, customer service and contact center is cited more and more, actually even more than the marketing organization in most businesses. So the short answer is we see more businesses have customer service and contact center take the lead, but the recommendation that we always have is that VOC and CEM initiatives should always have executive involvement or support in order to achieve the best-in-class results.
David, did you want to add anything to that from your experience?
Just to add to that, I think a lot of the people that we deal with come from an operational part of the organization. So I agree that that nexus is shifting towards operations. They're the people that have got the pressure to improve performance most. I also have to say that irrespective of departments, which department, it always starts with someone who gets it, if you'll excuse that phrase. Someone who has got that commitment, that passion, that drive, and even whilst it might not be part of the core part of their job, they recognise the importance of capturing and acting on voice of the customer as a way of driving an improved customer experience. So quite often it falls down to someone who's got that passion and belief.
Thanks, David. So my next question is, what do we do to convince the company that a VOC initiative doesn't have to be a massive time-consuming initiative?
Yeah, I think the first point is take on board one of those lessons, which is automate the administrative elements. I am always amazed at the amount of time when we talk to customers that they spend putting together distribution lists, sending out surveys, taking data out and putting it in Excel and doing month-by-month reporting. I can think of one case where with a UK bank, we automated the entire suite of dashboards that they produce to their team, right from board level down to team leader level. And that saved them 143 man days per month. And once we'd done that piece, it was all automated. The first of the month, the data was available, no activity. So that's the first piece. Don't assume that it has to be administration heavy. The second thing is start small and focus on getting those quick wins. Understand where the customer's biggest pain points are and start there. And always, right from the start, make sure that you are looking at not just the feedback, but trying to link that to the financial performance. So if I make this improvement in customer experience, what effect will that have on my retention, on my cross-sell, on my upsell, on my profitability? Because nothing gets senior managers, senior executives interested more than pounds and dollars.
Thank you, David. All right, everyone. Again, I think we're running a little bit long today, so we'll go ahead and continue this conversation at VOC Meets CRM. I want to thank Omar with Aberdeen and David ClickTools for your time and great information today. And as I mentioned before, we will be sending this link out via email for the recorded version of this webinar. Have a great day. Thank you, everyone.